Okay, this is part 2 of the moon. Now, page 94. Most of the rocks from our first moon landing, Apollo 11, clocked in at 3.6 billion years of age, but the soil in which they rested upon proved to be 4.6 billion years old. With Apollo 12, the same contradictory clash was found. The soil sample was 4.4 billion and the rocks were 3.4 billion. They which is an impossibility to our bewildered scientists. They expected the soil to be the powdered remains of the rocks laying amidst it, a rubble pile consisting of dust, dirt, rocks, and stones that have been banged and crushed over eons of time by the bombardment of meteors. Even more bewildering discoveries were to follow, as lunar experts found from chemical analysis of the soil that this lunar dirt did not come from the rocks around it, but from somewhere else. If the moon did wander through the universe as a spaceship, then clearly it would have passed through different cosmic zones and different cosmic time zones, and in doing so would have picked up rocks and rock particles in the form of meteorites and micrometeorites, and the dust and dirt would be differing ages. Some elements found on the moon have never been before found on Earth, such as uranium-236 and neptunium-237. Interesting. Page 99. When the lunar module ascent stage of Apollo 12 was sent crashing into the moon, the seismological equipment recorded the shock waves. The result staggered NASA. The artificially created moonquake lasted 55 minutes. Furthermore, the kind of signals recorded by the seismometers shocked scientists. Seismologists were puzzled that the signals started with small waves gaining in size to a peak and lasted for an unbelievably long period of time. The records are utterly different from any obtainable observation on the Earth. The seismic records of Apollo 12 proved not to be unique. When the spent third stage of the ill-fated Saturn rocket booster of Apollo 13 was propelled out of Earth's orbit into a moon trajectory, and by radio command crashed into the moon, it hit with an impact equal to 11 tons of TNT. About 87 miles from the site where Apollo 12 astronauts set up seismometers. The entire moon vibrated for more than 3 hours and 20 minutes. The vibrations traveling to a depth of 22 to 25 miles. The Apollo 14's SIVB was also boosted into a moon course, and by remote control crashed into the lunar surface. And a NASA science publication stated that the moon reacted like a gong. For about 3 hours it vibrated, and these vibrations traveled to a depth of 22 to 25 miles. The instruments, by the way, picked up the vibrations even though they were 108 miles away from the Apollo 14 impact site. So they intentionally crashed the lunar module into the moon, and it rang like a gong for over 3 hours. It's because it's hollow. Now, page 101 to 102. The velocity of seismic waves seems to gradually increase to a depth of about 15 miles, and then there's a sharp increase. This increase can only be accounted for by a change to a denser material. At a depth of 40 miles, the velocity is estimated to be about 6 miles per second. No rocks examined thus far under the actual pressures expected to be at a lunar depth of 40 miles transmit seismic impulses at speeds as high as 6 miles per second. What kind of material would carry sounds at such a speed? Strange that a check of the speed of sound through probable intermixture of metals, iron, titanium, beryllium, and others that exist in the outer Maria averages out to be about 6 miles per second. Here is the impressive proof that the inner layer inside the moon is indeed metallic. Page 105 to 106. Lunar scientists received upsetting news from the instruments left on the moon by Apollo expeditions. Great eruptions of water vapor clouds have been detected, which spread over an area of some 100 square miles on the moon's surface. The eruptions lasted 14 hours. Apollo 16 astronauts had brought back rocks that appeared to be rusty, and it turned out that the rocks contain rusted iron. How could the iron in these rocks be rusted without the presence of water on the moon? Scientists wondered. For to have rust, one must have oxygen and free hydrogen, as well as iron and water. Page 135 to 136. Consider this conversation, for instance, which took place during the Apollo 16 mission between ground control and the Apollo 16 astronauts. Duke, these devices are unbelievable. I'm not taking on no man up there. Young, okay, but man, that's going to be a steep bridge to climb. Duke, you got... Man, John, I'll tell you, this is some sight up here. Tony, the blocks in Buster are covered... The bottom is covered with blocks 5 meters across. Besides, the blocks seem to be in a preferred orientation, northeast to southwest. They all go up to the wall on those two sides, and on the other side you can barely see the outcropping at about 5%. 90% of the bottom is covered with blocks that are 50 centimeters and larger. Capcom, good show. Sounds like a secondary. Duke, right out there. The blue one that I described from the lunar module window is colored because it's glass coated. But underneath the glass is crystalline, the same texture as the Genesis rock. Young, Mark, it's open. Duke, I can't believe it. Young, and I put that beauty in dry. Capcom, Dover, we'll start EVA 2 immediately. Duke, you better send a couple more guys up here. Capcom, sounds familiar. Duke, boy, I tell you, these EMUs and PLSSs are really super fantastic. Interesting. Page 145 is Apollo 17. Schmidt, I see tracks running right up the wall of the crater. Mission Control. Gene Cernan, your photopath runs directly between Pierce and Pease. Pierce Brava, go to Bravo, Whiskey Romero. Again, telling him to switch over to a private channel. Isn't it odd that if an astronaut reports that he sees tracks running up the side of a crater, that ground control would tell him to immediately switch to a private channel? Page 52 of a different book, Secrets of Our Spaceship Moon. It should be noted that the Apollo flights, which there have been rumors concerning UFOs, employ a different approach to communications between astronauts and the ground. The radio signals are sent directly back to Houston, and then rebroadcasted, with Houston having the option of deleting whatever they choose to delete. During the earlier Gemini and Mercury flights, the talk was in the open, readily monitored by ham radio equipment. So, are they keeping things from you? They definitely have the option. Now. Page 86 to 87 of SOSM. The disks of the sun and the moon appear to be just about equal as viewed from Earth. The moon is only 2,160 miles in diameter, while the sun is 864,000 miles in diameter. That makes the sun's diameter approximately 400 times greater. To put it another way, the ratio of our moon's disk to the sun is 1 to 400. However, our sun is 93,000 miles away, and the moon is only about a quarter of a million. $93 million miles away, I'm sorry. Strangely enough, this works out to be the same ratio, approximately 1 to 400. The viewer on the Earth to be about the same size as our gigantic sun. This is shown remarkably during a total eclipse. Isaac Asimov makes an observation about this truly amazing situation, which he calls a coincidence. What makes a total eclipse so remarkable is the sheer astronomical reason why the moon and the sun should fit so well. It is the sheerest of coincidences, and only the Earth among all the planets is blessed in this fashion. The chances of the moon fitting perfectly within the diameter of what we view the sun as... Come on, people! Like... Alright. It was moved into that position specifically to create a total eclipse, because it's a space. Now, in his authoritative study on our moon, H.P. Wilkins explains his astounding conclusion. Long ago, it was calculated that if the moon had contracted it on cooling at the same rate as granite, a drop of only 180 degrees would create hollows in the interior amounting to no less than 14 millions of cubic miles. More evidence that it's hollow. Page 125. The Associated Press wire carried this brief but startling Soviet announcement, emphasizing the importance of lunar soil samples. An article in Pravda reveals that the first successful automatic mission in 1970 brought back particles of iron that does not rust. Pure iron that does not rust has only been found in one area on the Earth, and it is a large obelisk in New Delhi, India, and it is very, very ancient. Physicists and scientific experts claim that they cannot understand how this is at all possible without some kind of manufacturing process being involved. They also point out that it is beyond our present Earth technology. So there's two kickers for you. One, the moon has iron on it which doesn't rust, which clearly would have to be created somehow. And two, we have an example of it on Earth, which comes from a super ancient civilization, which we can't replicate today. So the ancients clearly had technology that we're unaware of, and whoever the fuck built the moon clearly had the same technology. Now, page 130. The Sea of Tranquility is covered with material that is considerably more dense than the average density of the moon. This is the reverse of what one would expect. On the Earth, the lava that flows upwards and out onto the surface is the lighter component and not the heavier faction. Here's another interesting thing. Page 158. Moonquakes occur at monthly intervals like clockwork. When the moon is closest, the first popping noises come. Actually, the very first occur 5 days before the moon reaches perigee in its orbit. And then again, another event indicates something stirring in the moon 3 days before perigee. The amazing thing is the clockwork precision with which all this happens. Scientists find it absolutely astonishing. You can set your watch by it, confesses Latham. NASA Science Briefing, Houston, May 26, 1971. Moonquakes that are occurring at monthly intervals that you could set with your watch. It is that precise. Odd. Page 63 to 64, back to our mysterious spaceship Earth. Our mysterious spaceship moon. Even before man journeyed to the moon, scientists like Isaac Asimov had pointed out that the moon is really a freak of celestial nature. For by cosmic laws, she should not be circling the Earth. The moon is a whopping 1/4 the size of the Earth. The next largest satellite circling a planet that is anywhere near that ratio is whirling around Jupiter, and it is only about 1/8 the size of its master. Because of the moon's proportionally great size, some scientists have even labeled the Earth moon